Welcome to The Gut Check, Nutrition and Gut Health for Active People, a podcast where we are talking functional nutrition for functional fitness and a functional you. Remember, if your gut is not functioning optimally, you are not functioning optimally. I am your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, and OCR fan, Kate Klein. You can connect with me on Facebook at The Dublin Dietitian, or go to my website for additional resources, services, and the video recorded versions of these episodes at www.dublindietitian.com. That's DUBLINDIETITIAN. As a standard disclaimer, the information provided here is for educational purposes only. While I strive to provide accurate and helpful information to my listeners and viewers, I cannot take into account individualized circumstances. This is not a substitute for personalized nutrition, health, and medical advice from a health professional. If you are ready to get your personalized plan, you can go to dublindietitian.com and schedule a complimentary strategy session to get a game plan in place for you to hit your health and fitness goals. So let's get to it. Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for listening in to today's episode. This is actually a bit of a throwback to one of the old recordings. So for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know, originally all of this started with me and Andee just sort of shooting from the hip about a topic of interest to us. We called it the Gutsy Gals. But as it's sort of developed and grown into this podcast, I morphed it into officially the Gut Check podcast. I've had different guests, but Andee was sort of the rock that helped start this and sort of the foundation of it. And with everything that's going on in the news, or I shouldn't even say that, some conversation that's been going on within my Facebook group, I kind of wanted to go back to basics and use this episode. So this is one where Andee and I just sort of talk about like, what is healthy eating? It's a very conflicting topic in a lot of ways. There are so many different theories of thought out there and different schools of thought on what healthy means. So this is where we sort of break it down and talk through almost like a virtual grocery store tour, like food group by food group, section by section, and some of the things we would look for. So I hope this will sort of answer some basic questions about what you should look for. What are we looking at with plate portioning? What is a whole food versus an edible food like substance? Is organic important and all of that? But I also want to direct you to a couple other resources because when Andee and I did this recording, it was, again, sort of like shooting from our hip, sort of talking through it. And I have since gone and made a free 7-day challenge that if you're more visual, it's actually got like PowerPoint slides and it's a little more refined, so to speak. So I'll put the link in the show notes, but that's something you could check out. It actually walks you through like 7 days, giving you a goal each day, a little different group about what healthy is. And I do everything from the lens of my work, which is functional medical nutrition, where it really so much health comes down to gut and inflammation. So that's sort of the angle of approach I take for healthy, because that is the foundation and the starting point for basically any goal. You always want to start with cleaning up the diet according to these protocols. And then from there, you can get more nuanced, get more personalized, get into supplements, get into meal timing, get into more specific things and individualized things. But I hope this is a good start for you. And if you are struggling to figure out how to implement these practices, again, take a look at the show notes. I'll put that free 7-day challenge, but there's also menu plans you can look at and accountability groups that can be really helpful to actually get you from, I know what I should be doing, into actually following through and doing and implementing. So I hope this is a helpful back to basics for you and just kind of get you restarted on healthy eating. Welcome back, listeners, viewers,
Hello.
to Gutsy Gals. I am Kate.
And I'm Andee.
Bringing you an episode where we're kind of going back to some basics.
Yes. Squares, square one. Pyramid one. Plate one.
I think we are on the My Plate is kind of.
Yeah, My Plate's
I'm a huge fan
the
of
standard now.
Standard. Yeah, I preferred Harvard's version, but yes,
well,
we're going back to food groups, quality food, whole food.
Why you should be eating whole food.
And then how this all ties in to general health, inflammation, gut health.
Yep.
Since we are
As
still
always,
As
tying
always.
it back to inflammation and gut health.
Yes, the root of so much. Liver, gut, liver, gut, liver, gut.
Yep.
So, yeah. So actually, it is. It's something that I have to admit it's not a great thing, but I have to admit that sometimes being so far and deep into the nutrition world that I have been for 21 years now.
Right? It's hard to go back and go, wait a minute, what is square one? I live over here. What are the basic foundational components that people really need to understand that, quite frankly, it's not something that we're ever explicitly taught.
Well, and then on top of that, it's very confusing because I know we'll have to hit this another time, but how media accidentally or intentionally misconstrues science research.
Oh God, that's a whole. Kate, you just found a whole nother episode.
We've touched on that before and had said we have to talk about the shady underworld, but that's again. So it's understandable if you feel confused about what is actually right to eat. Don't beat yourself up because you are going against marketing, psychology, mixed messages, people bringing philosophy in, cherry-picked research, and then the truth that even when research is trying to be as authentic as possible, it does get complicated.
It has a bias.
Misunderstandings and bias.
And let's go back to even I was watching a documentary the other day, and this physician said, I never learned in medical school how important it is to the food that you eat. No one ever talked about the importance of nutrients and quality of food. And it's just medical school, never.
And you know what I was actually just sort of thinking about that the other day, because if you think back, who's the father of modern medicine? Hippocrates.
Well, yes, in many ways, but also
he's considered, because the doctors, they take the Hippocratic oath, first do no harm. But what was the other big thing Hippocrates says? Let your food
be thy medicine. Yes, let your food be your medicine. Absolutely.
So it's not new.
By any means.
It's not new. I mean, I know people within the Christian community will talk about Daniel's food that he ate, and it talks about food. It talks about what's healthy.
Ayurveda.
Ayurvedic is into different types of foods and how it works in the body. Chinese medicine and herbals. It is not new.
No,
but it's
and
gotten
guess what?
So muddled.
And here's the real big problem, and this is one of the things that I am trying to professionally bring to light, is we have all of this knowledge about phytonutrients, which are literally food nutrients, plant nutrients, the things that you can get by eating food that can fight inflammation, can fight cancer, can turn off genes. And guess what? You can also turn on genes for bad things with eating not great for you
So
foods.
Before we get way off into that deep end,
before we do that, let's bring it back and talk about why you need to eat food.
So I liked in one of Michael Pollan's books, I'm going to forget which, he's got some great books, but he basically said,
all of them.
Yeah, all of them. He basically made this differentiation between there's food and there's food-like substances.
Bingo.
This has become very confused in our society, again, due to marketing, research, psychology, promos, ads.
Unbelievable.
A lot of deconstructionist nutrition. So, but that's the basic. First and foremost, we have to get away from food-like substances that are processed and packaged and manipulated,
manufactured,
and treated and sprayed and irradiated and all this, and get to actual whole foods.
Yes.
And I completely understand where this is confusing when people start out, because even when I was in school, I was just reading the food label, and to me that was all that mattered. What are my macros?
What are your macros? How did you read your nutrition label?
Yeah,
Never mind care about the ingredients label, where you're like, wow, I learned all of those prefixes in chemistry.
But that
and when
didn't
you put
matter
them
to me,
together, you get weird molecules.
because there is this idea that just count your calories. So, you know, that diet style, if it fits your macros, I just like, but
So much
because
more.
quality is so important. Quality
Yes.
matters. So that comes down to, like, literally you want to get things as close to their natural form as
Yes.
possible. The
Yes.
less processing, the less heating, the less,
Yes. Yes.
you know, boiling and condensing and adding to and
Yes.
enhancing, and what are the other words they use? Fortifying, the better.
So many. Yeah.
So as a sort of
Extracts.
umbrella, very general statement that comes with a lot of disclaimers, so don't take this at 100%, but if it has a food label on it with an ingredient list, it is less likely to fall within this healthy food, whole food thing.
Correct.
Because if you think like broccoli, carrots, apples, they don't have food labels on them. They don't have ingredient lists. They don't have macro breakdowns. Even when you get like a piece of fish or steak, there's usually not that kind of breakdown on it.
Yep. There's not been that kind of processing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a clue that you're in the right.
Yes.
Again, there's exceptions to that rule. You know,
I was going to say, I'm going to make an exception to that and say, for example, read your ingredient labels. For example, this is my snack bar mix. I can read all the ingredients: almonds, honey, coconuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, dried apple, coconut oil, vanilla, almond, sea salt. And I can look at the piece of food and I can see all of those things. And if I wasn't lazy and a bad cook, and realistically also not any of those things, but just a person who doesn't always have time to make my own
little snack bars,
crunchy, crushed up bar. But that's the thing. Like, these are all, they're literally, that's the only ingredients on that package. These are still all real
food items listed.
Food items listed.
Yeah.
Food
so
pieces.
Again, there are exceptions to that rule, but that's kind of a starting generalization.
Yeah.
And I know, like, there's been that debate too when people say, like, shop the perimeter, and other people get all mad. Oh no, because then you're skipping your spices, and you're skipping like your canned tuna, and you're skipping your olive oil. It's like, okay,
well, yes, shop the perimeter and then be strategic.
Like, we're not trying to make an entire like 5-hour talk here. There are definitely going to be some exceptions to the rule, so bear with that. Also, kind of, again, that disclaimer: if you have a specific diet type, stick to that. Do what you're medically supposed to do first. This is not medical advice for an individual. This is a general educational purpose only video. But yeah, so
you can make the two work. You can make the two work together.
Yeah. So if you need help kind of figuring out your specific diet, if you're on low FODMAPs, if you're on AIP, if you're trying to do like low carb, paleo, keto, if you want to do, you know, Whole30, and you need help kind of figuring out how these blend together and work synergistically, reach out, let me know. But so kind of starting with that food group idea, like what I would like to do is talk about the different sort of food groups and what I consider the healthier options in those. And the fact that it is important to balance, again, you know, individualize as you need to. So what quality items are within each of those food groups, because it is good to have a balance. And then when you get away from quality, it does lead to health issues. It can exacerbate that. We've talked a lot about how any sort of stress in the body, nutritional stress, chemical stress, toxic burden stress, physical stress, emotional, etc., leads to inflammation, and inflammation is at the root cause of so many issues. So we're gonna hit about how food can help or hurt your health through inflammation. Then we're going to dive in a little bit more to what does that mean? Because we have talked about that a lot. So coming back to basics, what is inflammation? What does that mean? When is it good? When is it bad?
And what's it driving in your body?
And what's it doing? So that's kind of our long intro.
So
I edit some out.
let's start here. Plate size, 9 inches, not 12, not 10, a 9-inch plate. How many of us use a 9-inch plate?
I don't. I would if I had them, but right now, yeah, I've got like the big old 12-inch, and I'll put stuff on it, and I'm like, it just looks so sad on that little plate. And then I get like the little tea plate, and I'm like, it doesn't fit my salad.
Yeah, it doesn't fit all there. Yeah. So,
whatnot.
but like, so for example, we have Fiestaware. Don't go out to the rings. Keep your food inside the rings of the Fiestaware.
Yeah.
That like shrinks your plate size.
Yeah. So first, just, be mindful of portion sizes, be mindful of satiety. Don't overdo it, and know that psychology does play a role in that. There's a lot of research. So plate size does, and bag size and all that. We're not going to get into that, but that'd be another topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first and foremost, just be aware of your plate size, manage your portions, because excess portions lead to excess calories, leads to excess weight gain.
Yeah. And if we're thinking roughly on that 9-inch plate, bottom half, vegetables, top
non-starchy.
I was gonna say non-starchy vegetables, and then your top two quadrants, your proteins and your whole grains.
Or starchy.
And starchies.
I'm not always into grains. But yeah.
So, not always into grains. Fiber. Our fibers.
Yeah. Kind of the plate is half your plate. Non-starchy veggies is ideal, like 2 fists in those challenges I do. Then like your handful of carbohydrates, so whether that's a grain, a starch, a little bit of fruit, and then kind of a palm of protein, whether that's plant-based or animal-based. So that's kind of just a general starting point to get people going. The vegetables are important. They're the first thing you see when you walk into the grocery store. So let's start there with, what does quality produce look like?
Quality produce is colorful, bright, crisp looking. But typically the brighter the colors, generally speaking, the more phytonutrients in the vegetable or fruit.
Fruit or vegetable. So it is important to get that variety of color. It is good to get it fresh or frozen. I'm not a fan of canned.
Yep.
Again, processing, there's usually added sugars. It's usually processed so much that the vitamin C content is obliterated and other things like that. But fresh and frozen tend to be good. But yeah, a lot of variety, because as Andy's saying, like the phytochemicals, so each color of a vegetable comes from a different phytochemical. So you've got your zeaxanthins and your chlorophyll and your, different antioxidants, your luteins and all that. And that's like your greens and your yellows, your reds, your oranges, and they all have different health benefits. Some are more for your eye health. Some are better for cancer fighting. Some are better for your immune system. So it's important to get that, eat the rainbow. I remember as a kid, this Big Bear did like the 5 hugs a day or something like that. Get your 5 a day. Trying to get
5 a day, the colorway.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds right. So it is important to get variety. It is important to get a lot of different color throughout the week. That doesn't have to be like a jam-packed little rainbow.
Yeah, it doesn't. Believe me, you don't have to make a rainbow on your plate for every meal, but just in general, when you open your fridge, there should be a rainbow of fruity, vegetable, and goodness, colorful.
Yeah. Have a nice, good green salad for lunch, and then some good carrots and tomatoes at dinner, and whatever. Just throughout the week, just aim for variety, or even week to week, because I know a lot of people will bulk prep, and that's fine. But as long as over time you're getting variety, so get a lot of color, get it fresh. I do recommend organic with a lot of produce.
Absolutely. If you can.
You can Google EWG or Environmental Working Group. They have the Dirty Dozen list every year, and they let you know which products have the highest pesticide content. And those are the ones, like, if nothing else, try to get those organically.
Yes. And typically speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's something that you're going to eat with the skin, you want to make sure that you're getting definitely things that are more organic versus like fruits or vegetables that you're peeling off the skin. It's not quite as crucial, because at least in that case you're peeling off the vast majority of the surface that was at least in contact with any potential.
Correct. Yeah. As a kind of, again, that mostly general, there's probably some exceptions, but yeah, like an avocado, you're not eating that shell.
Yeah, so you're not eating that.
That's probably okay. Yeah. Grapefruits, oranges, those are probably okay to be conventionally grown, versus like grapes are very high.
I was going to say, or berries. Berries are the big one that pops to my mind. Bugs love
berries.
Yeah.
You got that. Yeah. Celery usually is a really high one, but it kind of, yeah. So Environmental Working Group does that every year. Dirty Dozen, you can Google it, get that list. But it is important because pesticides are toxins.
It's a toxic burden.
To really quickly hit what I find to be a very frustrating debate that I don't think should be a debate, when people sit there going, well, your liver is made to detoxify, you're fine. That's what it does. Go, yes, that was what it was made to do when we first were. I don't care if you believe we were created or we evolved, but it was long enough ago in a very different society that was not so inundated with pesticides and chemicals and toxins and air pollution.
I was going to say, like, crying out loud, think of even like 50 years ago, we weren't using the same level of pesticides that we're using on our foods today. So like our livers have to process so much more nowadays than they did before.
So we are not progressing. Our bodies cannot progress as fast as our world pumps out toxins. And like, I remember reading articles years ago in Scientific America where they're saying this is a problem with water filtration. They can't keep up fast enough with all the ridiculous amounts of chemicals and pesticides and medications that are getting in our water system. And they're trying to learn how to filter it out, but they cannot keep up, and neither can our liver. So I'm just going to say that is firmly my belief. We have to help our body. Yes, our liver does work to detox, as does the rest of our body, but it is a complex system that can be overloaded. And so we need to do what we can to mitigate that and to minimize that environmental impact. So I do believe where you can, go organic. Find what fits your budget, and at least aim for those Dirty Dozen to be done organically. So that's kind of my
something else that you might want to consider too, for people who have a pretty broad ranging diet, there are options to do like subscription boxes where you might not get to, in some cases you actually get to pick what your imperfect foods are. In other cases it's just, whatever these seasonal organic, surplus kind of items are. But that's, if you're someone who can and doesn't have any dietary restrictions, there are some really cost-effective ways to do organic.
There's like Thrive Market, Misfit Market, Ugly Food,
Imperfect Food.
A lot of places will have like local CSAs, local farmers markets. So those are cool.
So there's a lot of ways to do it if it's something that you're interested in doing, but it's maybe a little bit of a cost hurdle. There's some ways to do it. And actually, I have friends that have been able to decrease their grocery budgets and go more organic with being able to use those boxes. So
so
if it works for you.
Something to look at. So I think that kind of hits the fruits and vegetables as kind of a basic, a lot of variety, organic where you can. Good rainbow. And definitely also really want to quickly hit, there's a lot of health benefits to green leafy, so please don't discount those. That's like one of, if you had to sub pick within
dark leafy greens, dark leafy greens. If you can't, there's nothing else that you can do, dark leafy greens.
So if you need some ideas on how to like work these foods in, drop a comment, shoot a message. We can help you find ways. There's a lot that you can do to try to introduce it.
And sneak things in places where you don't necessarily think about it. That's the other thing. There's a lot of ways to sneak more color.
And I think another thing that's important to realize, I had a lot of people who used to tell me like, I hate all vegetables. And she realized, like we worked on this, she realized that she'd never found the right way to make it. She'd had like canned green beans, or her mom, when she grew up, her mom would like overcook the broccoli till it was practically brown and mushy. So once she started experimenting on her own, there were some duds for sure, but she found ways that she and her kids actually liked broccoli or carrots.
We love cauliflower in this house. I never ate cauliflower in my entire, until I was probably 35, I would have been like, I don't like cauliflower. Ask me if I'd ever really eaten it though.
So it's be patient and realize there are tons of different ways to prepare things and ways to flavor them and ways to incorporate them. So don't give up just because you haven't found something that you like yet.
Yeah.
It does take some experimenting, whether you want to steam it or roast it or grill it or saute it or put it in a soup or put it in a smoothie or put it in a stir fry or omelets. There's all these different ways, and you can flavor it with like butter, grass-fed, we'll get to that, butter or oil and herbs and spices, or like there's just a lot of different things.
There's so much you can do.
Said she actually she pureed spinach with like maybe almond milk and then put that in her oatmeal. So like there's all kinds of it's unlimited things that you can think of. So please don't just go, I hate vegetables, and write this off. It is very, very important. Probably one of the most important food groups in order to heal.
Yep. And and I know we're not in total restaurantville for the most part. But if you're ordering something, try a side of a vegetable. Because a lot of times restaurants have vegetable sides that are prepared in unique and different ways that might give you inspiration for how to do something like that on your own. I mean, that for me was a big one when I was like, oh, I need to like try different vegetables. Kind of going to and seeing how some of like my favorite restaurants prepared things gave me ideas for how I might like to try to prepare some of those vegetables. So get creative.
So get creative, try new things, ask around, don't write it off.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay. So that's probably, hopefully, like our longest talk, because again, that one I do find is just like one of that. I tell people like, this is where the magic happens.
Yeah. Your vegetables, I mean, your plant-based foods in general, but your vegetables and the phytonutrients that you get in that, they're so critically important. If you do nothing else, just eat more vegetables. They're like so low in calories that just eat more vegetables, add them to your diet, even if you're not changing anything.
Good hydration for your skin, good for heart health, everything. With caveat, if you can't do it for a medical reason, please don't. Because I know some people, that'll trigger.
For some people, fiber is not great.
Yeah, but again, as a general basic standpoint, that's a good one. So I want to move on to the next food group in just a moment, but I really I don't know what's going on with my nose. I got to blow it or something. So I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back. All right. I know it's like cat fur or something maybe from Inky. So we have our produce. I guess at my grocery store, kind of the next thing I hit then is the meat area.
Meat and seafood. Yeah.
Seafood. So we can kind of talk about that. Again, if you have a specific diet style that you prefer to follow, that's fine. But we'll just kind of talk as a general standpoint. First of all, what's a processed meat and for meat, I'm lumping it all in. The red meat, the beef, the pork, the chicken, the fish, all kind of together.
All of the animals.
So what are some processed foods that people eat a lot from this section?
Sausage, chicken nuggets. What's some other things that come from the like
hot dogs?
I was gonna say hot dogs.
Bacon. What's your thought about deli meat, Andy?
Oh my God, deli meat is full of carcinogens. Don't eat it. Oh my God, especially if it's packaged, unless it's like the boar's head, all natural, like organic and bad stuff free. Oh my God, if you do not buy meat in a bubble package off of a hook or a shelf.
I believe vegetables are some of the one to highlight for some of the most important, I think,
processed meats. Oh my God. So did you know that when you
I feel like it's the most complex. Hang on. Before you get to that, meat is the most complex because there's so many subgroups that media will not break it down into. They lump it all together. And so this is where I think like when people are like red meat's bad, that's a big generalization. We'll talk about it. When they're like saturated fat's bad, that's a big generalization. We'll break it down. So meat to me is the most complex because it does have all these subdivisions that do not get discussed as separate things, and they get mushed together as demonized or savior. So we're going to break some of this down.
Yes.
So yes, the start is, first of all, again, we said processed food is not ideal. It is not the whole food. Same goes for your protein sections here.
Yeah.
So bacons usually have nitrates, nitrites, sugars added to them. Sausages, same things. They've got a lot of things added to it, a lot of fillers usually. Chicken nuggets are not chicken half the time.
Yep.
And breaded, fried, like preservatives out the wazoo. Deli meat is tricky.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'm not a fan of it. I do not consider it a whole food.
Yes.
There's usually salt, sugars, nitrates, nitrites added to it.
Yeah.
It's rife for potential bacterial growth on it.
Yep. It goes bad quickly. If it doesn't go bad quickly, then it's full of preservatives.
I personally do not eat it, and I would recommend it as like, kind of a last case resort. And yes, try to find the most natural version you can.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's the don't do it unless you absolutely have to. So, and even then try to make it as good as possible.
Read the labels, read the ingredient list.
Yeah.
So
there are nitrate, sodium, sugar-free bacons. They're delicious. They are expensive.
They're expensive. They're a little harder to find.
And they're really hard to find, yeah.
Yeah. But so when it comes to, well, let's just start with poultry. So chicken, turkey are kind of your commons. Chicken breast, chicken thighs, all that kind of stuff I would say is fine. Yep. I am a fan of buying the whole chicken and actually learning what to do with it. That's a money saver, and it's
big time.
You know, just kind of a better thing.
And it's got the word spatchcock. You can spatchcock. Like it's well,
you can't beat
like
that.
Well, first of all, it's just a fun word, and second of all, like, man, when I figured out how to spatchcock and cook a chicken, you can it's so fast.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I'm a big fan of, even, I don't care if it's not Thanksgiving, I'll buy a whole turkey, roast it up. I've got bones to make bone broth. I've got meat for a while, freeze a bunch of it, do all sorts of stuff with it. So where I believe the quality aspect comes in is when it comes to how this creature is raised.
Yes.
It does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference.
Want to talk about a little bit of poultry raising options?
Well, yeah, first of all, let's just go for the most important reason that we want to go. I mean, forget all the health benefits. It tastes better. Like, health benefits aside, they taste better. So there's so many different ways. So if you think about a traditional poultry farm, it's all of the bad crap that you've ever seen on a news program, versus you have cage free, and then you have free range, and then you have pasture raised, and then you have the different feeding modalities that have to do, some of them will say grain fed. Yeah.
And I'm gonna caveat, just I'll say this, a lot of these terms are also going to apply to eggs.
I was going to say, and a lot of it, and that's where I was going, and a lot of it goes in with the crossover to eggs for a reason. But if you think about it, if we are what we eat, what do we think about the animals that we're eating? They are what they eat. So what do you want the animals that you're eating to be eating? You want them to be eating
salad,
the healthiest
or corn chips
stuff. Yeah. Do you want them eating Fritos, or do you want them munching on a salad off of a tree? They're just, any of these, it absolutely makes a difference. And to an extent, these things also trickle over into dairy. As well, for if we're talking about cows. But you want the animals that you're eating to have been fed nutritiously themselves. They will taste better. And they are therefore less filled with toxic burden for you to detox. And they are more nutrient dense.
Very true. And so what happens, there's an actual difference in the fatty composition of creatures that are fed kind of more natural, if chickens are allowed to go around and peck and eat bugs and have that kind of stuff.
Versus being fed with literal high fructose corn syrup, which is why high fructose corn syrup was HFCS, as you know, first number one ingredient on so many bad things, was actually scientifically formulated to make bigger, fatter animals.
Was it? I did not know that.
Yes, in the 50s,
I believe it.
its sole purpose was as a food additive for animal feeds.
Interesting.
Because it made fatter,
I believe it.
bigger animals.
And I know like there used to be a lot of that hormone pushing for the same thing, so that because everybody wants chicken breasts, nobody knows what to do with the rest of it. So these birds would get genetically like ginormous chicken breasts, so it was bigger meat, but not great. Or cows they would pump through with stuff so that they produce more milk. So the more natural the creature was raised and fed, the healthier it was, and therefore the healthier it's going to be for you. And so what I usually tell people, so chemicals, pesticides, toxins, these things, what your body does, and their bodies as well, to try to protect you from it when it is overloaded, because your liver, again, can only move so fast.
It moves it all into
fat. It wants to get it away from your organs, doesn't want it to damage it, so it will go into your fats.
Fat cells. Our fat stores store so much bad stuff that
and so this
our liver.
To the animals as well. So not only is the fatty composition literally different, like in saturated, like if we think whole milk, so this is one I remember researching a while back, like whole milk, if that was grass fed, it actually has a different amount and ratio of different types of saturated fats in it, more conjugated linoleic acid, which is actually an anti-inflammatory in your grass-fed cow milk, versus your conventionally raised cows, the fatty compositions are more dangerous. So again, this is kind of one of those subsets where I said, like, not all saturated fat's the same. It makes a difference how that creature was raised. So same thing for
how
like
they
marbling. Marbling.
How they develop those things.
So all of that's different. So the raising of the animal will change the health benefits to you of the components of that food.
Just as much as you are what you eat, they are what they eat. So therefore, if you are eating them, you are what they eat.
And they store, again, toxins. So we've got the actual structural component of the fatty acids are healthier, and then there's less of the toxins. So what I usually tell people, like, if you cannot afford grass-fed, free range, all that stuff, if you're going to buy like milk cheese, cottage cheese, stuff like that, that's when I do recommend fat-free. Because you don't want all that extra build up in those toxic elements and pesticides and whatnot. Versus if you're getting a good grass-fed, free range butter, milk, and that's, part of your intake, those are healthy fats. Those are actually healthy fats.
They are
in
very
moderation, but they're actually healthy.
And I'm gonna go deeply sciencey here.
Go for it.
There's actually research of a friend of mine just got hired to work at a drug company. He was doing research in ketogenic eating and the importance of healthy fats and what those healthy fats look like. They were able to reduce, first of all, they were able to take women who were in stage 4 breast cancer and start resolving their mets. So that's a huge thing. But also they needed, for those individuals who were going on to do chemo, they were actually able to use half the amount of chemo because of the healthy fats. So healthy fats are hugely important.
We need fat. We need fat in our body. It's part of our immune system. It's part of our nervous system. It's part of our brain. We do need these in the right amounts and the right ratios and of good quality. So
important. Quality is so important. And the other thing is, I can't say enough, if you've got a local butcher or a small grocery store that can do that kind of thing, it's worth looking into, because a lot of times like the bigger grocery stores that still do like the grass fed and stuff can be more expensive. So it can be a little bit cheaper if you go to like a local butcher instead.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess kind of the sum up of this, again, this is the one with what I consider kind of the most subcategories and the most complication with, is it healthy? Is it not? Like, well, it really depends. So when they're like, well, red meat, like there's an increase in cancer. Well, they were looking at hot dogs.
Yeah, well, they were looking at hot dogs and they were looking also at well done meat that was charred.
Yeah. Or they lumped all beef together and it included like the conventionally raised, grain fed, you know, all of that. That makes a difference. So to say like, oh, all red meat causes cancer, like, no, it depends what kind we're looking at. Oh, all beef raises cholesterol. No, it depends how it was raised and then how much you're eating and other complicating factors to that. So to me, that all kind of comes down to, if you're going to choose to have eggs or dairy or cheese or red meat or any of those other things, quality matters.
Yep, hugely.
Kind of across the board. That's the only way to sort of sum that one up.
Yep.
And that sort of rolls over into that same idea with saturated fat, like the amount of research that says, oh, coconut is saturated fat, therefore it's bad.
It's so good.
Like, first of all, let's not say any one food is forever good or bad, but again, it is a plant-based fat and its saturated fat chain is not the same saturated fat chain as a grain-fed piece of pork.
Yep.
So that
avocado, like plant oils, avocado oil, same thing. It's a different, literally the molecular structure of these fats is different.
Yeah. Saturated fat is, again, it's a category. There's a bunch of different types of saturated fats, but a lot of research likes to clump these all together and demonize them all.
Yep.
So be aware of that too. And again, I get it. I get why it's complicated, because I had my own dad like show me this article. Look, you shouldn't be using coconut oil. AARP says it's bad. I'm like, let me read it and make sure there's not something new that I'm not aware of.
Let me dissect how bad the science is and then tell you.
Yeah. So
and how bad the marketing is and how bad the meat.
Fat, and saturated fat is linked to heart disease. I'm like, okay.
Okay, so let's take, this was the 1950s research, and this was, and this was, and this was. Yeah, there's so many things. Like,
so quality matters. That's kind of
quality
the
matters.
biggest thing. Get, again, that whole foods, the most natural possible. That includes the most natural upbringing and raising and feeding of these animals if you're going to partake in their products. Now, if you choose to get like beans and use that for your protein, like that's fine. I'm not saying you can't do that by any means. Again, this is not telling you what food groups to eat. We're just talking through the best quality within each of these food groups.
Yep.
So.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we hit that. I guess we kind of hit dairy and all of that as well.
Kind of hit dairy and all of that.
Oh, fish. Fish can be complicated. How about that?
Fish can be complicated, yes. So here again, fish, it matters how they're raised and how they're caught, and there's so many caveats to it. Here again, the closer you can get to a fish that was pulled out of the water by nature and then put in your mouth, the better.
Yeah. So wild caught is better than farmed. I'm sure there's probably some exceptions to that. There might be people farming their fish fantastically, but in general, they're being fed like little soy pellets and they're swimming around in really cramped little situations, eating each other's feces, a lot of stress. So in general, wild caught's going to be better.
Yeah.
When it comes to your omega-3s, there's a lot of controversy, debate, question about whether or not salmon is a great choice because of the mercury content.
Yes. Yep.
So that's a tricky one.
Yep, it is. I'm trying to remember the acronyms. What? SMASH, salmon, mackerel,
albacore,
something, sardines, and herring.
I think that
What's
sounds
the
right.
A?
Is it albacore tuna?
Oh, albacore. Yes, tuna. So those are the best fish from an omega-3 perspective. So smash, salmon, mackerel, albacore tuna, sardines, and herring.
And a lot of people will just turn to the salmon. That's the most popular, but that is a major predator fish. So there's the concern that it has the highest mercury content because, again, you are what you eat, and what you eat is what it eats. So when you're way up the food chain of things going mercury, there's a bigger buildup of mercury. So that's not to say don't eat salmon, but kind of be mindful and do the rotation again. Sardines are probably the safest, healthiest form of omega-3s, but definitely very taste aversive to most people.
They are definitely an acquired taste.
I would say it just kind of tastes like strong tuna to me, but to me it's kind of more the mental thing, because it's got its little scales on there. You can see the skin. Sometimes you got the bones.
I know.
And like
I had to. So I started eating sardines early on when I with my grandpa. We would have sardines on crackers, and I stopped doing that. Because then I got to the point where I was like, I don't. No. When I was about 10 and I discovered that I had opinions about food, I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Thanks. And now I'm like, I would kill to eat a sardine on an actual saltine. So I have to
I will say, I know for me, I've had them. And it's 100% a mental thing for me, because really they don't taste a whole lot different than a can. Canned sardines to canned tuna is similar. It's a little oilier, slightly stronger flavor, but not
much. But you're not eating tuna. You are looking at it's a thing.
Yeah, but I have eaten it, and quite honestly, if I do eat it and I get past kind of the mental thing, I can just eat it out of the can. It's actually
that's what I do for the most part too.
Yeah, and I even get it with the bones in for the extra calcium.
And I like the crunch, to be honest.
But I don't do it that much, and so I understand the aversion. I completely get it. I'm still not on board
gung ho this stuff,
but I know it's healthy and it's cheap. Every now and then I'm like, okay, get my omega-3s. So that is an option. So that's kind of the thing to be aware of with fish. With the methylmercury issue with that. So fish, beef. I think we kind of hit everything with that. So
the reason why we're talking about all of this
is there a food group we missed?
Whole grains. Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about
starches. Yes, starches.
We didn't talk about starches and
there
whole
we
grains.
Go. We're missing something. Starches.
We're missing something.
Yes, starch is you've got starches and grains. So usually people think of their starchy vegetables. So again, at the beginning we said non-starchy vegetables. Your starchy vegetables are things like your potato, corn, sweet potato, yams. Some people consider pumpkin. They're going to be higher in carbohydrate.
The things that you could bake with and turn into a mushy, semi-solid substance. Those are your starchy vegetables. Mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie.
I've made mashed cauliflower before.
I said traditionally. Come on.
But so those are your starchy vegetables. They're going to be more of a carbohydrate rich food.
Yes.
And then you've got your grains. So that runs the gamut of anything made from wheat and oats, rye, barley, amaranth, quinoa, rice.
Oat is another, and then what else can we throw in this category?
Spelt, kamut.
Yeah, we could go on and on.
Ancient grains. But so the core here, two things that I want to talk about. One, again, the processing and quality matters. And then two, the gluten aspect, just to be aware of. So again, these are things that are commonly processed. We process the crap out of them into crackers and cakes,
cereal,
chips, and cereals. And I don't think those are ideal as much as oatmeal. I'm sorry, as much as certain cereal brands will be we're whole grain. To me, they're so processed.
It's still
it would again be kind of that as a backup. I'm not saying this is a horrible choice. If
you're not seeing actual oats in whatever oat cereal you're eating, it's probably not unprocessed enough.
Yeah. And I guess actually in the past, I've termed things like these, like the deli meat or this, as sort of like a transitional food. Like it's not ideal, but for a lot of people, it's probably better than what you're doing. I would rather you had a bowl of Cheerios than like a Pop-Tart.
Yep.
And I'd rather you have deli meat than like a cheeseburger from a fast food restaurant.
Right.
So it's what I'd consider kind of a transitional. If we're not going to be like 100% strict, they're iffy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so be kind of aware of that. Puffing rice, for example, can kind of change the fiber content of it. I have a lot of people who rice is great for them, but rice cakes don't digest the same for them, and like they can tell it's there's a different component to it.
Yep.
So again, trying to talking basics, ideal, keeping away from the processed as much as possible, or reducing the amount you are, and going forward, just like the bag of brown rice, the box of old-fashioned rolled oats, full sweet potatoes, or potatoes as opposed to like pre-made French fries. You can make your own, chop them up, throw them in the oven. But getting away from the processed ones, checking those ingredient labels, looking for all of that. And then gluten, like we're not going to dive into it. I do tell people to at least do like a good long trial staying away from gluten. There are a lot of implications and problems with gluten for many people. So just being aware of the foods that have gluten in it. So barley,
wheat,
rye. Wheat's the big one for sure. And for a lot of people, don't forget, like that means
wheat,
bread, crackers, pretzels,
like, put it this way, if it comes in a box, it probably is loaded with gluten. If it's something you can take out of a box and pop into your mouth, it probably has gluten in it.
Yeah, those snacky things. So yeah, just kind of trying to go for the gluten-free. Get the quinoa, do the rice, do the potatoes and sweet potatoes more than not, at least for a try. You know,
give it a shot.
Technically, if you have a strong, severe sensitivity to gluten, it can take 90 days to fully get out of your system. But for most people, like at least go 30 days, try it for 30 days. I encourage people, like, try gluten-free, dairy-free for 30 days, because they are very common, not 100%, but very common inflammatory agents. And we'll talk about inflammation again as part of the other.
And that's where we're going.
So that's where we're going. But yeah, so for grains, starches and grains, again, some people prefer grain-free, that's fine. But these can be very good sources of good carbohydrates, potassium, bran, fiber, B vitamins, thiamine. Like there are good nutrients to all.
There are so many good nutrients in whole grains.
Yeah, and kind of in your beans as well. So your beans are kind of like a half starch, half protein.
Yes, the lentil legume world.
Your black-eyed peas, black beans, all that stuff. So if it's part of your diet program and if it doesn't bother your digestion, there are a lot of wonderful nutrients to these foods, and in the right ratios and all of that. So that's kind of, I think, sums that up. What we will not dive into too much is for time, but also know, like, herbs and spices. Think of them like plants.
Huge sources of nutrients.
Massive amounts of nutrients and wonderful properties. Try to get organic, because same idea. They're very concentrated doses as they're dehydrated, so that's a very concentrated dose of pesticide. Fats and oils, again, we've kind of touched on. You want the plant-based. You want like olive, avocado, coconut are going to be good options. Avoid vegetable oil, please. Avoid that one.
How many vegetables do you know that actually make oil?
It's mostly soybean in there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's mostly soybean.
Yeah, and that might, for time, I think we'll kind of just
leave that one for now
a little bit, because we could go like deep into all this, but I think we've gone plenty deep already.
Yeah, plenty deep for like a broad and starting block topic.
Back to basics.
Back to basics. We're pretty complicated basics, but we're there. It's okay.
It's so important. So the basics being, yes, try to get to the whole foods as close to the natural plant as you can, and that includes as close to the natural way it is grown or raised, which, so without pesticides, without grain fed without being cramped in a little cage.
Yeah.
Real quick caveat, I think this is interesting. This is a theory that a mentor of mine had, and we don't know, so I'm going to throw this out here right now. I'm not saying we know this for sure, but it was an interesting thought he had, that as we've talked about, when you're stressed, you have a slew of hormones that come through your body, right?
Yep.
Cortisol.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
So when there's the thought, there's
of
the
how
curiosity, is it possible when animals are put in these very stressful lives that these chemicals, these hormones are much higher pumping through their body when they're slaughtered? How much of that stays in the body and might, we don't know, does processing it, does cooking it negate it, does our digestion block it, or are we bringing in these additional stress hormones in our body?
Bingo.
We don't know yet.
That's
like,
been interesting area of research that I've been looking at recently as well. So yeah, and that's part of it, right? I mean, yeah, we know that the hormones that we were giving animals affected the hormones of humans. Why would stress hormones that are also still hormones? It'll be interesting. I want to see how, I can't wait to see what comes out of this area of research.
So I'm not sure, we don't know, but it's definitely kind of another like, ooh, am I a guinea pig? I'd rather not be. So it's kind of another push for me to try to get humanely raised and even kind of reduced animal intake in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Again, not diving into that debate. You do what's right for you. But that all comes down to inflammation, stress in the body. So trying to hit the basics of inflammation, because it does become sort of this big abstract, inflammation is in your body and it's bad. So to kind of try to summarize what it is, it's a physiological response of your body to either an injury or like a foreign invader.
Yes.
So some of the things that we think about commonly are like, if you have the flu, you get a fever, you might get body aches or headaches. Like that is an inflammatory response in your body trying to fight off this foreign invader. Or if you get like a cut in your arm and it gets kind of swollen and puffy, like that's fluids and plasma in your white blood cells coming to that area to make sure that a foreign invader does not get in. So hopefully kind of
that's a pretty good way to bucket it. And then there's like the different, so within inflammation, we've got the physiological response to a foreign invader, so bacteria, viruses, etc. We've got an injury, right? Bruising, etc. So there's sort of that physiological inflammation. There's been an injury or an insult.
So kind of the general idea is when there's something offensive or something damaging to the body, your body goes to try to heal that. It responds, and a lot of that is due to your white blood cells and your immune system. And your white blood cells are going to release inflammatory agents, basically.
Correct.
So these are things that, to not get into the actual names because that just gets confusing, but they're things that like alert other parts of your body that it needs help, or starts memorizing what this invader is so we can fight it off again later. You hear about that a lot right now with COVID and all this like antibody stuff, or it's things that are creating the fire, so to speak, to kill it, or things that are eating the bad things. And so there's all these different roles that your white blood cell has, and it's releasing these
responders.
They have crazy names. It's like interleukins and TNF alpha and macrophages. And all
believe me, we would lose you with the names.
So just know it's releasing warriors, so to speak, and different things that create this inflammatory response. So to an extent, if it's acute, like a flu, a virus,
an injury,
like that's totally normal. That's what we want it to be.
That's what we want that is what we want from the immune system. We want the immune system to be our battle. It fights our battles for us. However, when we get into chemical stresses,
Well, or just a chronic stress.
And I was going to say, and chronic stress,
Yeah.
like from an emotional, mental health, day-to-day living, 40-hour-a-week grind. Maybe you've got, it's COVID, lack of sleep, it's winter, there's been no sun. I mean, all of these other,
these stressors on us.
So we've got injury stresses, we've got
response.
chemical stresses, and then we've got stress as we think of it.
Yeah. And something that I've seen a lot of people, like when I'll talk to them about inflammation, they're like, oh, my doctor checked my what was it, my CRP, and he said it's normal. That's like marker.
One.
So we can look at, first of all, we can look at other lab markers, and they don't have to be like off the chart. Again, we talked about labs a little bit in the past. They don't have to be off the chart to say there's still something going on.
Yeah.
And C-reactive protein is only one marker. So there can be other markers that we can look at and other things that go on. So all kinds of things can cause inflammation, like Andee was saying, and some of that, when it comes down to gutsy gals, that gut dysbiosis, like your microbiome, if bacteria are off, gut permeability, which ties into that.
That's where I was.
Chronic allergies or food sensitivities are actually a vicious cycle, because food sensitivities cause inflammation. More inflammation causes more food sensitivities. How many people are like, oh, I'm on this diet. Oh, I had to restrict. Oh, I had to restrict. Oh, I had to restrict. Because that inflammation is still there. So you're getting more and more sensitivities.
You're adding to the fire. The fire is continuing to burn. And this inflammatory fire, whether it's injuries and viruses in our immune system, and the chemicals and the things that we're exposed to through our foods and our general daily life stress, all of this causes inflammation. So
environmental toxins, certain medications, antibiotics, because that wipes out that gut microbiome.
I mean, medications are a big one, and we need to be on them in many cases. But at the same point in time, it's causing those meds are affecting other points in the whole like big broad chemistry of your body.
Yeah. And then the caffeine, sugar, excessive alcohol, processed foods, they all
chronic stress, just being like your body's just constantly producing cortisol.
Yeah.
So all of these things lead to inflammation, and inflammation is basically not only this process of like upset chemicals in our bodies, right? It's not just, it's breaking cellular walls, and it's, in doing so, you kind of wind up with this physiologic sludge that exists in your body, not necessarily anywhere. It's kind of between your cells. It's kind of in your cells. It's kind of leaking around through stuff. It's in your bloodstream. It's just...
And it manifests differently for everyone. For some people, it targets the skin, and we get like rashes and rosacea and psoriasis, eczema, like little bumps on the back of the arm, dermatitis hypoformis. For others, it's all up here. We get migraines, aura, dry itchy eyes, sinus issues, things like that. Other people, it's the GI, IBS, bloating, gas, all those symptoms we talked about.
And joint pain.
Like for me, it's joint pain. Yeah, when I eat like really crappy food, my knees will ache because I have chronic. I shouldn't say I have chronic knee pain. I don't currently, if I'm good, but my knee pain started back in like 5th grade. Like I had issues growing up that now can trigger sometimes. I'm sure my shoulders are going to get added into that eventually.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we're going to add
injury I had. That'll be a problem down the road, I'm sure. So lots of collagen. And
it shows up in, it can show up in, it's going to show up in
mood, energy.
Well, and it's going to show up in every different person completely differently. And it may be one system, it may be multiple systems, and it may be one of those things where you're like, well, I really feel like I'm okay most of the time. I'm just maybe a little tired, and I've got these bags under my eyes.
And that can be.
And then you're like, okay, well, try these things, and suddenly someone's like, oh my God, I didn't realize how bad I felt until I didn't feel bad anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really felt really bad. And
I was just told that by somebody the other day after we kind of worked through some things. After the 7-day challenge, like, oh my God, I had no idea that I had that problem till it went away. And now I'm like, holy crap. Like, oh my
I was
God,
living with that.
better. I didn't know I could feel like this.
Oh,
So I guess if we kind of take that back again, the idea, when I talk inflammation and when you hear inflammation, the concept of that is your body is not happy with something. So your immune system is responding.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, over responding, hyperactive. And that's where it, like, long term, that's where we get autoimmune. It is your immune system attacking non-foreign invaders because it's so confused and like high alert anymore. But your immune system predominantly is between your GI, that we've done a tour of that, mouth, stomach, gut, and then kind of your blood system, the white blood cells. So it's when that tube, that GI tube, can
allow junk to bleed into your blood. Literally what happens is the cellular walls of your intestines are breaking down, and literally you are getting all of the stuff that should be going into your poop is going instead into your bloodstream. Let's just be basic about this. Literally.
I guess from a very, very simplified version, yes, that is true. Yes, you are right. I wouldn't have put it that way, but yeah.
I mean, if we want to be like as non-scientific and as point A to point B as possible.
Simplified, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, what your body wants to be excreting in your poop is instead being absorbed into your bloodstream.
Because that GI lining is tearing.
Because that GI lining is torn. It's tearing it, and it's not like you're not having a, hopefully, knock on wood, you're not having a blowout.
Like
if that's a whole other
bleeding,
problem. But those junctions that are supposed to be tight get loose. And as they get loose, stuff leaks through them.
Yeah. And that is why, like, in functional medicine, kind of the thing, it's like it's said at the beginning, liver gut, like so many chronic health issues, not all, of course, again, there's always exceptions, but so very many stem from either your GI is damaged, your gut is not what it should be, or your liver is not detoxing and processing.
And or a combination of the two.
It usually is a combination of the two.
It's usually a combination of the two.
So, and that is why we are the Gutsy Gals. That's why I focus so much on gut health, because it is at the root of gut
health
much.
Is
like
body health.
When I first started working with like a business mentor, and he's like, you've got to have a niche. You got to have a niche. I'm like, people with food sensitivities, but they don't know they have it. So I'm like, he's like, well, who do you work with? I'm like, everybody, because it really is such a problem. Like, no, it's not a silver bullet to get you from where you are to 100% in 90 days, but it is the foundation.
I mean, you got to get getting the inflammation knocked down has got to be number one. And the easiest way to knock down your body's inflammation is to clean up your diet.
Like
honestly,
the protocol, kind of the standard steps of care for Hashimoto's starts with inflammation, food sensitivities, and adrenal glands, and then you get into thyroid, because that foundation has to be in place. The standard protocol for treatment of SIBO, same thing. We got to deal with the inflammation and the GI. The one for adrenal fatigue, like even that, it's start with the food sensitivities and reduce that stress response. So it's like that is the foundation. So what I'm trying to tell my mentor, I'm like, well, I've helped people with migraines, Crohn's disease, arthritis, stubborn weight loss, PCOS, Hashimoto's. He's like, that's too broad. I'm like, but it's all the same.
But it's all inflammation. It's all inflammation.
It all starts from that.
It starts with inflammation, healing the gut, clean up the diet, stop putting the inflammatory agents into your body.
Yeah.
The sooner you can stop putting, calm the immune system down, and then you can really start to heal.
To protected. So your GI is meant to protect your immune system from going berserk.
Yep.
And so when that GI is damaged, your immune system's getting inundated with foreign invaders that shouldn't be there, because like Andee was saying, it should be going through you. So yeah, it's heal that defensive line in your body.
Yes.
GI is a defensive line,
Yes.
and that helps keep your immune system quieter.
If you think about it this way, we are essentially, we're a donut, right? Our bodies are literally built around a tube, and that tube goes from one end to the other. Your microbiome has more in it than you have cells in your body. So the tube that goes from here to here has more microbes, more things that live in it than you have cells in your body, to like a tenfold.
I forget the number, but yeah, it was kind of
ridiculous.
I'm like, we're more bacteria than we are human. That's weird.
Yeah, we are. We are more gut bacteria than we are human. And I mean, if you think about it, that microbiome is doing a ton for us. And we got to keep that microbiome as healthy as we possibly can and keep it contained in the tube, not into your body.
Yes. So I hope that really kind of explains inflammation, because I've had a lot of people like, well, you know, my doctor says inflammation's not the problem because my CRP is fine, or I don't feel like I'm in pain, like I don't feel inflamed because my joints don't hurt.
Well, I don't have any swelling. I don't have any
inflammation. All those different parts of the white blood cell system and the immune system manifest.
If you get to the point that you're having measurable, noticeable symptoms, if you have gotten to the point that there is something that we can measure, then you are already in an inflamed state.
Yes. Yes. And so, yes, the majority of the people I work with, this is where we start. And there's some exceptions. That's why I always do like a free hour-long talk to just kind of make sure this is the right path. For other people, it is like, ooh, no, we just got to test these other things first, or let's work on just basic lifestyle habits first. Like, let's start sleeping. Let's, you know, get up and actually have some water. So it is still tailored to make sure that this is the right step. But for so many people that I work with, because of the chronic health issues, because of the IBS, because of the autoimmune, this usually is a very important starting point to have.
It's in my view, this is, like I said, this is step one. This is where you got to start. Clean up the inflammation, clean up the diet, remove the offending agents, and your body is going to start to heal, because that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But you got to remove the offending agents.
Yeah. So getting to those whole foods is one of the first steps from a nutrition standpoint to reducing the inflammation while flooding your body with as much nourishment as you can, getting those nutrient dense
plants,
vegetables,
food as medicine.
Yeah, to help reduce the inflammation, to help heal the body. And then moving forward, if we need to do tests to find out your specific foods, fine. Other people, it's like, no, just getting rid of the junk, and they start losing weight and feeling better, feeling more energized. Just the generic stuff. But yeah, it's kind of the first step. That, drink water, sleep, find a way to go breathe deeply for 5 minutes a day.
Yes.
I can't stress that enough.
We need to have a talk on breathing.
Okay, next talk. You know, you've been lecturing me about my breathing with my stress level going on these days, this past couple weeks. But so yeah, maybe we'll do a special on Monday.
Yeah, we could.
We'll do a live video maybe Monday if I'm feeling up for it. So we'll see.
Yeah. That would be exciting.
That would be kind of fun. I like the idea.
It would be.
Maybe I'll try to get this one out early, so then I'll get this all edited and
ready and excited for people for Monday.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see how Monday goes. Monday's gonna be Monday. We'll see. We'll wing it. But yeah, so I hope. I know we talk a lot. I know we start getting in, like we just both want to dig into the roots and the science and the complex
and the nitty gritty. Yeah,
it's always my problem. I try to cover 20 different disclaimers before anyone even asks me a question.
You're right. You're like, but
any question that might come up. So in short, quality food matters.
Yes. Eat whole foods.
Whole foods.
Use your
Raised as best as as close to natural as possible.
Yeah.
This helps reduce inflammation and heal the body, because inflammation is a pathway between your GI and your immune system that causes your immune system to overreact and damage your body. Might be a good summary.
No, that's a great summary. I like it.
Yeah, like I like to call them our little warriors within, but we got to fuel them right. And sometimes they go a little crazy if they're getting inundated. So
sometimes the troops, sometimes sometimes the troops need some corralling.
They go a little Hulk like and kind of don't realize good from bad. But yeah. Our warriors within, they want to protect us, they want to fight for us, but we got to treat them right. Yeah. No. Okay, well, I hope that wasn't too complicated.
Yeah, I would say that wasn't incredibly meandering at all.
Oh gosh. So yeah, let us know if something
food be medicine.
Clear. Whole foods, organic, free range, grass fed as much as possible.
Yeah.
And heal your body from the inside out. And we'll see you guys later.
Excellent.
Good. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye, gang.